Communion, communion with the babies. When they're first born, we socialize them to kindness and goodness. So the ceremony is usually in the spring, welcoming the babies ceremony, the ones that were born over the winter. And so we have a big dinner for them, and then everybody knows their names by then because they named the babies, and the babies have their names. Takechapila hai. What's the little baby's name? Hokshilala hai. Is it a little boy? Wichincha la hai. That LA at the end means uh, endearment, a love sound at the end. Hey, Hokshila hai. Wichincha la hai. That loving sound at the end. And so we have Trunkashila or Unchila, lovable grandpa, lovable grandma. And some people even call their puppies Papila. I hear some children calling their puppies Papila, Papila, Papila. Or kitty. They put that LA at the end for that loving intent and sound for the special little kitty. So then they say, Kidila, Kidila, Kidila. Anytime you hear the LA at the end, it means lovable. Okay, so a spin-off of the preslete, the top of the head is every person's top of the head is preslete. Babies have a special soft place right there, if you remember. I told you that. And auprès, auprès is the sharp edge, the knife blade, the sharp part of the blade, the sharp part of the blade right here. That's the auprès, auprès. So auprès, then we created a word out of that, auprès tron. Tron is to produce. Auprès is the sharp. So in the trade days, producing by trade, you buy something, meaning in the old days when the French trappers came, we traded with them because we love the sharp edge. Anything that has value of the sharp edge, we loved it. Like the hatchet has a sharp edge, axe, the buck knife, and the butcher knife, the bowie knife, right? Bowie, and, and one of these days, one of these days, I'm going to tell you our values of the trade relationship with the French and the English traders. They had a standard of what costed how much, how many buffalo hides for a horse, or things like that. I'll tell you that. I have a list of the invoice of the cost of things back in the day. So objetro means when you go trade your hides for axes, hatchets, and knives, and have machetes, anything that has a sharp edge. Objetro. I produced a sharp edge for my family. I brought back the sharp edge by trading. Not only did we trade for the sharp edge, we also got tobacco and beads and fabric and things. So objetron broadened in meaning to buy other things. It used to be the sharp edge. But after the trade relationship expanded, then everything that we brought home, we bought. Le auprès watron. I bought this. I bought it. Now it became just bought. Uh, in the first place, it was producing the sharp edge. How languages change for the betterment. an expansion of the use of other things, and that the language would follow the use of other things. But we have to remember where it really started. And that's what makes our culture so rich, is because we remember the origins. We remember our history of when we used to trade for the sharp edge, when we didn't have the sharp edge except with some obsidian and flint and other sharp edge stones that we used to cut our meat or scrape our hides, even the bone tools that we used to scrape hides, some of the hardwoods that we used to scrape the elk hides and things. Those were even better with the use of metal. The objet was stronger, it stayed longer. You could sharpen it. Yeah, yapame, pame means to sharpen. Pame, pushing to make it uh, sharper, the blade sharper for cutting. So that was what objet I bought. Objet means bought after constant use and broadening and buying other things besides the sharp edge. Now, y objet, he paid for. Y objet. Objet is in there again. It kind of stayed with that sharp edge. Y objet would be uh, spent spent that much for a maybe a clock. After a while, we start having clocks in those general stores. We had, I have one right here. This is a winding clock. Wind it up. I wind it up all the time. You wind it up, and it keeps time. This is right on. It's right on it. It has a little alarm button on it that you could pull it out and it wake you up. And it's pretty handy as a storyteller. I always put it, close to me someplace when I'm telling stories, so I know my hour is up. It's really handy, and it's portable. You carry it. You could look at it, and you could see the time. So when your time's up, then you know it's right here. You look at the time. It's pretty handy. Yeah, I spent so much money for it. Yopkewaya. I spent $1 on this one. $1, $1 right here, Goodwill store. $1. It's still brand new. Somebody probably said, "Oh, I don't need that anymore," and I don't use it. I use my digital clock, but I use it. I love old things. It reminds me of grandma and grandpa. Even when I wind it, it sounds like grandma and grandpa still here. It reminds me of things, even sounds. I just have a nostalgia for sounds and even the smells and tastes. Uh, I sure appreciate my relatives. I could still feel how we all knew grandma and grandpa together, how we evolved to have this kinship at all. They're the ones that made it possible that we were born at all. And then our mothers and fathers and our cousins and our relatives, uncles and aunties. We have a strong kinship attitude. We have a strong, if you're Lakota. Some people get decentralized, meaning they get different jobs in different parts of the country, and then they split. They left for Dallas. The husband's a lawyer down there, and one of the brothers moved to Rapid City because he works for the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. One moved to Yankton because He works close by there as an electrician. And we moved to Utica because I am in the middle of a lot of reservations here on this east side, East River. That's where I'm at. And I go to Sisseton and I go to Santee and Winnebago, Omaha, Ehunktown, Melks Camp, all of Lower Brew, Fort Thompson. I go to those places to tell stories, and sometimes I'm a guest teacher. So I'm very, very fortunate to live here. And I go all the way back to Pine Ridge, to the high school, and to Red Cloud. I go over there too. I drive over there. We have cars, and now we have Zoom. We have Zoom. You can't get away from us, right? We're always traveling, no matter what. We're nomads, right? Yes. Uh, we we're nomads because we like to visit our relatives. We go to other camps to visit and stay overnight. Even now, we still do that. We go to Martin or Rapid City and we stay with relatives. And so we could still keep that kinship, uh, the pulse of the kinship alive. It's still beating strong. The pulse of kinship, the pulse of the earth. And we're on it too. It taught us how to have a pulse of kinship too, and kinship with the animals. I have 4 little birds in here. My little friends, I keep them in here. Then I have 4 in the other room in the living room. I keep a, a dog in here. My dog friend, Princess, she stays in here with me in my office. She'll let me know when she wants to go out. That's the good thing. And, so there, I have kinship with my animals too, and my plants. My plants. I have a strong kinship with them. I should be watering them here pretty soon. And always mark off when I last watered them so I could. These ones every 2 weeks. I douse them pretty good, and then let them be for about 2 weeks. But I spray them constantly all the time. I have a sprayer right here, so I turn around and just spray them. And they're happy when I do that. They're just happy to have water. Yeah, they're really happy when I spray my birds too. They like to, they like to get sprayed. I didn't spray them for a while because it was kind of cold. But as soon as it warms up here, I'll start spraying them again. My little birds. I have that much of a strong kinship tie ties with these, even with the animals. That they have a expectation of love. They have that expectation of love. And they're all looking at me now. And so, what opche? All of a sudden, pche became the word for law. Wo, the value opche, the sharp edge of the law. The sharp edge of the law. I always hear that in English, but we have a word for it. Wo opche. Opche is the sharp edge. Wo is the value. Why did we create that wo opche as a law word? Well, the opche, of course, in the beginning, we traded for it, and we had to have a value system of what is worth how much. How many beaver hides would I take to be able to get an axe, or uh, maybe 5 axes? How many uh, buffalo hides can I take to get some rice or flour or other products, salt, and other food items, and of course pails, buckets. We trade, and so we traded for the value of how many things I could get with one buffalo hide or buffalo robes. In the old days, the buffalo robes were plentiful, so they weren't as expensive. Now, if you try to buy a buffalo robe, maybe $800 to $1,200 just for one robe. In the old days, that wasn't that much because there was a plentiful of robes, and people wanted to make them real quick and get uh, to the trade stores to get things. So you had to work hard. Who said Lakota were lazy? We had to work hard. You ever try to tan a buffalo hide? It takes a long time. So you have to stay right on it. If somebody's done, they're tired, somebody gets on it and starts scraping. If that person gets tired, somebody else gets on and starts scraping. Yeah, it's a teamwork. It's a team effort. And you have to know the skills of how to tan it the quickest, the fastest. And people start to find out their own styles of how to produce uh, quickly to have buffalo robes. And families kept their buffalo robes too, to sleep on, to cover up with, to have ceremony with, and to drape one if they're fasting. In the nights, they could drape their buffalo robe over them to keep warm if it's a cold, cold night. Sometimes in the summer, it gets cold at night. Uh, I'm fortunate to Hamblicha when it's really hot. I always go in July, the traditional way, right? Yeah, some people go in early, like May and June, because there's no mosquitoes yet. Well, when I went, it sounded like a whole orchestra of violins. Those were the mosquitoes. Although I had to cover up with my straw quilt, sit underneath the covers. There's so many of the little techmuga flying all around me. Techmuga. Say it. Techmuga. Techmuga. It's hard to say. It's a mosquito. Human attract. Humans attract. They need flesh to live. If they don't, they die. In other words, they're out to get some some kind of nourishment. So they're out searching, searching. It's a wonderful world, and of all these things, how to cover up and stay away from them, or burn some sage, something that keeps them away. Chapche would be to push and stab something with something sharp. Chapche. When we uh, get our fork and stab the steak, or get our knife and stab the gut and open it to get all the good stuff out, right? That khanira. Mm. Did you ever clean khanira? What is that? Khanira. Menudo, underle, menudo. Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. How about khanira? What's that? That's the Lakota way of menudo. The good way. Yeah, tasty way. So we use everything, even the hooves. Do you ever have khanira with hooves in it? Oh, it tells on you you're not traditional. You're traditional. You use many things in your Hanukkah. I do. We still use the hooves of the cow to put in our Hanukkah. We still do. Our family right here, Utica, South Dakota, very traditional. Right here, us guys. And there's only two of us, me and my wife. My wife is white, but she could cook Hanukkah the best in the world. Yes, she learned from me. I taught her all those things that a Lakota should know. That's why we survived through many harsh winters. You could dry it, Haniga, recook later, just like Papa. You could dry taniga, the kashupa, dry them in the sun. We cook them in the winter. You could have taniga in the winter by drying them and storing them so that they stay dry, dehydrated, really good and dry. So we need to know how to survive, right? And yupre would be to sharpen the edge. Yupre. So if I did it, bodupre, bodupre. And the same as pame, right? Another word for sharpening, wapame. Usually that with a stone. Pame. Yupre, anything to sharpen steel files and the grinder. I have a grinder. I'm really fortunate. I have some electric tools. The grinder, you take my axe and I go zzz, zzz, zzz. Oh, it's sharpest one ever you ever saw. I still use axes. I use hatchets. I have a machete. Uh, Pretty soon I'm going to go clear out my garden area, chop all the old stuff, and I have a little wagon. I load them on there and pull them away. And then my neighbor comes with uh, his little plowing machine, and then he makes a little garden area for us. So then we plant our plants. We're waiting because we need rain here. I think we're in a drought area. There's no rain for a long time, and we hate to use up the city's water just for the plants. So we're waiting, and maybe tomorrow we can start planting and use our hose to water the plants as they grow. Gestola is a sharp point. Anything that has a sharp point, gestola, like an arrowhead. Yeah, it's gestola. It's sharp towards the tip, the arrowhead. The, yeah, so wahinkpe, wahinkpe, the arrow, wahinkpe. So that's the word for the people who use the words for the. Now I'm going to go to motions to move things. We're going to take a little break on this series of the the uh, root words, and we're going to go on to the pa. Pa is to push something. Pa. If you use that, a pa, it means pushing with your hand. So if I said pa tita, tita doesn't mean anything by itself. Tita. But if I said pa tita, it means pushing. Pa tita. So if I did it, I say wapatita. I'm pushing it. So if I said ye chinkiankeki wapatita, I pushed the car with my car. Wapatita, I'm pushing it. If I said yutita, it means pulling. That sound you is pulling. Yutita would then mean pull, pulling. If I did, I said badutita, balutita. Balutita would then be I'm pulling, balutita. Ye chinkiankeki balutita, I'm pulling the vehicle, balutita, with a total, that is. Okay. Natita would be you push something away with your feet. Natita. I think that you could press down with your feet, like the accelerator in your car or the brakes. You could push down with your feet to make the car slow down or stop. Patita. Or the clutch to change gears. Now watita would be I pushed. You would say I pushed. Now watita. And so those are the uh, the foot pedal and accelerator. You can push it forward. Patita. Natita. Natita. With the feet is natita. Uh, yeah, tita is with your mouth. Yeah is with the teeth or by mouthing. So yeah, tita would be pull with your teeth like kaloki yatita is holding a piece of meat and pulling it yatita. Kaloki yatita. Really pulling it yatita. So that's when you're out in the range, right? Yeah. Sometimes you cut a little bit and bite the rest off. You know, you're out on the range. Sometimes you make a little fire, make a spit, put your meat on there and heat it up. Yeah, when you're out on the range. Those were the good old days. I used to take my own lunch when I was riding horses and go to pick cherries. I took my lunch. And you know what I really like for a sandwich? Egg. I mix it all up with the yolk, mix it with the whites, and I make a sandwich. And the other sandwiches, the peanut butter and jelly, two sandwiches. That fill me up. Then I take a thermos of coffee or some, also a thermos of water to keep it cool. So I'm equipped when I go riding horses. I take my own lunch, and sometimes I'm gone all day, right up in the hills, looking around. Sometimes I go all the way to Manderson and go visit my cousins over there, the Ladoos, and I take off over the hills again back to Porcupine. I go to visit to Manderson sometimes, and the Killsrees. Those are my relatives too. I go all the way to see my friends and relatives, Killsrees, and the Yanktons. Yanktons are my relatives too. So I go visit around over there, and then I take off back over the mountains again, back to Porcupine. The other way to Kyle, 3 Mile Creek. I go visit my relatives at Grandpa Foolscrow's home, and my Grandma Katie, and my cousins, Karen, Weldine, and there's one named Shirley. And she always worked as a peace officer at Kyle. And so those are my relatives, Red Stars, Fool's Crow, Pawnee Legans. Those are all my blood relatives. And the Lone Hills. The Lone Hills are related to me also from Porcupine. That's where the Lone Hills are from. And so those are my relatives in Porcupine, the Lone Hills. And all the time I remember my relatives and think back to the times I was able to visit. Always gone. So some of my relatives I don't even remember or know them, and especially their children, I don't know them. I was always an educator. I was always gone. If I wasn't educating, then I was getting road experience. I traveled all over, meeting other tribes and having parties with other tribes and working with them. I worked in Laguna Mountains in California with Nick Elliott. He was the tribal president's son. And we had a contract with the BLM, Bureau of Land Management, to put up Quonsets for the bulldozers and other equipment for the fire lines, for firefighting. That's what we did. We built the Quonsets. We had that contract. So I worked in Laguna Mountains in California. And so I traveled all over to work, look for work, find friends that will have work. And if I visit somebody on the road, do you know where I could find some work over this way? I say, well, you're looking for some people over there to prune some grapes. You like to prune grapes? I said, yeah, I could do that. So I go prune grapes. And cauliflower harvest in the San Joaquin Valley, cauliflower harvest. I was there for that too. So I was all over the country, all over this United States, working on this side of the Mississippi. I worked in uh, Oklahoma City. I drove a wrecker. I pulled in cars that were on the road. I pulled them in to our salvage yard, and so I was a disassembler. I take car parts off and sell them. I was a disassembler. So sometimes I had like $5,000 in my shirt pocket, all rolled up. But from getting paid for selling car parts, I turn it in the evening. If I want, I get an advance for my pay and go home, go to a restaurant. I lived in a motel. And, it was like a little village with individual cottages. So I had a cottage in Oklahoma City. That's where I lived. It had a beautiful big bedroom and living room and a kitchen, restroom. It was equipped really nicely, and that's where I live. And so I worked all over, all kinds of jobs. I wasn't afraid to ask for jobs. Uh, so spin off of biting meat, yatita, and doing things that eating and sharing food and having a strong kinship tie that way. Gatita is you hit something and move it away with an object. Even a even a wind could gatita a whole uh, grain uh, bin down. I see some on the prairies. Sometimes there's strong winds. You see those grain bins pushed over if they're empty. I push them over. I see the wind push some of the semis. You know, they'll be zigzag, and they should have stopped. Last last truck stop, not get on the road. They know it's going to be really windy. When I was driving a truck and I came to a town or a city, and I looked at the forecast, up ahead was a thunderstorm, high winds. I don't get on that road. I stay right in town. I sleep in the back on my bed in the truck. I sleep back there, and then, so I don't have to pay for a motel room. Uh, Although sometimes I park at a motel parking lot and sleep in the vehicle. And, and truck stops, truck stop, big truck stop. I'd sleep in my truck and then in the morning go in and take a shower, wash up, and then continue on my way. Uh, because the wind could katita the whole truck, and the with the air it'd be wotita, not the wotita. It would be blown to the side, blown away, and so that's a wotita is when you blow something away from yourself, like maybe some dust that was on my desk. I just blow it away. Sometimes I just dust it off, or sometimes I wipe it off with a cloth. I always use alcohol. I spray it and then wipe it off. And keep germ free. Okay, let's go to hominy. Hominy. Wait, now let's go to sloha. That's to crawl or slide. Sloha. Pasloha would be pushing something, sliding it forward. Pasloha. And if it had wheels on it, it feels like it's sliding, like a stroller. Yeah, it feels like it's sliding, although the wheels are turning. And so you say paslo. You could say hokshicha laki wa paslo. I'm pushing the baby. So there's a absent topic. What is it? Stroller. You don't have to say stroller because if you're pushing a baby along, people have the imagination enough to know that you must be pushing a stroller. Hokshitalaki wapaslohe. And so that would be how you would say that. Wapaslohe. If I did it, wapaslohe. You slohe, if you're pulling something like a sled, it's sliding along, you slohe. He is pulling the sled along. What's a sled? Un slohe. Using it to slide. Slow with it. You slide with it. Slow. Sliding with it. Using it by using it to slide with it. Okay, so you slow it. Not slow as you push something away, or you could be on ice skates. You're pushing yourself along with ice skates. Not slow. I pushed it this way, and then this side slid that way. You push this way, this side slid that way, and roller skates too. Not slow. Well, yeah. I was sliding right along. Slow. Yeah, slow if you pull something with your teeth. Mm, there was a wrestler who used to be a store clerk at Pork store. Now I forgot his name, just because I was going to say it. And anyway, he was a wrestler, and at the Porcupine Fair, one of the features was he came to the powwow, and on the road there would be one of those great big Buicks. The Buicks used to be really big, about 3,000 pounds, and he would tie a rope on it and pull it with his teeth. Pull it along with his teeth. And so that was a feature. Oh, I bet he had some teeth that were loose in him. I don't know. He was a tough guy, but maybe he clamped down hard enough that nothing could move in his mouth. A tough guy. Yaslohe. Gaslohe would be if something was made to slide along. Gaslohe. And so some things that are sitting outside, maybe a cardboard box, and the wind came and it was sliding it along on the highway, the slippery highway. That would be gaslohe. It's made to move along sliding. If the wind slides objects on the ice, then it would be. I think I saw some of the boats that had runners like sleighs, and they had sails, and they would like sail along on a boat that had the runners for sled, and some of the contraptions were made just to do that. So there's some types of uh, sleighs that are made just to have the runners on a bed, a rack, and then the people sit on that and have the runners on the bottom, and then the sail up on top. And so they would sail across the lake. I think that's pretty dangerous. But if they're experienced sailors, they could, go back and forth, and turn the sails whichever way they were. I wouldn't be able to do that. Gaslohe and Woslohe are kind of the same thing, sliding away, pushing something with a tool. Woslohe. If I push something away with a tool, it, even the box that was pushed away with the wind would Woslohe also. Gaslohe it is sliding. Woslohe is made to slide by the push of the wind. Okay, Woslohe. Now let's go to hominy. Hominy. Hominy would be push to turn something. Pahominy. You know, in Gordon, Nebraska, when I was a little boy, I think I was probably 5 years old. I was a tiny little guy, and I would go to the park. My mom and dad would picnic, and I would be way over there by the merry-go-round. And I got on, and because there was a big, strong guy, a big teenager out in the middle, he was going to push it in circles for us, the merry-go. So a good thing I sat where there's a rod that went toward the center. I sat there and held that. That merry-go-round was so big and it's moving so fast that I lost the whole. Like that pulled me back, and I was stretched out, straight out, with my arms stretched out, and my legs were the only thing wrapped around that rod of the seat where the seat is. There's a rod that holds the uh, spokes of the merry-go-round, and it was going fast. Any moment, my poor little legs were gonna give out, and I'll be flying across the lawn of the park. But good thing everybody was screaming, so that uh, young man stopped pushing, and oh, that was my happiest day to get off that merry-go-round. Never again did I get on that merry-go-round. If there's a great big boy, it's gonna push it. I don't care if it's a little guy. Then it goes slow, but that teenager pushed it really fast. His little legs are running really fast, and I think he deliberately wanted us to fly off. He was a dangerous teenager. Oh man! So if he pushed it, he pahominy. He turned it, pushing it with his feet and running, pushing it with his hands, really running fast. Pahominy. Euhominy is if you turn something by pulling it, like a grinder, meat grinder, choke cherry grinder. That would be euhominy. You're pulling it to grind euhominy. And so that's a nahominy. If you're using your feet to turn something, like the bicycle pedals, yeah, nahominy. You're pushing it and making it turn. Nahominy. Isn't it amazing that just by adding a prefix, we're making motion? Nahominy. Using your feet to imagine a turning of the wheels. When did we imagine that these prefixes would come in handy? I think we're a survival being as Lakota people because our little prefixes answer to all the things that are invented. Our prefixes were necessary to describe things. It's an amazing language, I would say, because we have things fitted for things that are going on already. Available syllables in place and in order, a hierarchy of syllables that make up a word. Then we have an image, just like the putewokichu. Putewokichu. It feeds itself with its nose. You said, gee, what does that? And then you went to the zoo and saw an elephant, or the circus, and you saw an elephant, and you could see that it fed itself with its nose. Putewokichu. So that became the word for elephant. I don't know what elephant means. Probably it's an Arabian or African word. But we say putewokichi, feeds itself with its nose. And it's fitting. It describes what it's doing. And so that would be one example of the syllables to create a word to describe a being, the elephant. Now, if we say, uh, Yahominy, turning something with your teeth, I don't think that applies to anything. But Gahominy, made to turn or spun or spin, made to spin. Gahominy. We have a rabbit dance they call the Gahominy, where you follow the leader, and if he turns the girl around, everybody following should do it too. If they both together turn around together, everybody in line should do that too. They call it the Gahominy, the twirling dance, or the circular dance, Gahominy, or the spinning the girl dance. It's a Gahominy. And but Gahominy also made to turn. Gahominy would mean the windmill too. It's made to turn round and round. And the wind is blowing it. Gahominy. It also, you could also use Wahominy. The wind is pushing the windmill fins. When the fins catch the wind, and then it starts to turn, and then the gadgetry of the gears turn the long rod and push it down and pull it up, push it down, pull it up to bring up water. That's a windmill. It brings up our water. And so we would be able to harness the windmill machine with wind and get water. I wonder who sat around thinking about this to invent such a thing. I bet he made a lot of money to invent such a useful machine to get water. Not only machine, we have oil wells, and I think they use a different type of machinery too. That one's patchaja. Tchaja. It's pumping patchaja because it's pushing downward up, pushing downward up. That's patchaja. It's a different word altogether than kahominy. Kahominy is just only for the wind. And so I'm going to stop right here and say thank you for today. Thank you for your participation. You can participate anytime you want. This is being recorded. We stopped at Wohomni, and we'll start again on Wednesday. See you then. Thank you. Be sure to be there. Thank you very much.